Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. First things first, as I'm recording this on November 13th, I have gotten my first 8 subscribers over the last couple days. Thank you guys so much for that. It really means a lot to me. You've got to start somewhere, and so the beginning will be the hardest part for me, but I'm determined to push on. Anyway, if you clicked on this, you know what you're in for today. No need for an intro. I'm going to fix Doll's writing. Let's not waste time. Here we go. So obviously, Doll is a very underutilized character in Murder Drones. So the first thing I'm going to do is recap her character. Skip to this time on the screen in order to skip this recap. So in episode 1, we see her and Lizzie appear one time to make fun of Uzi near the beginning. She has a similar design to Lizzie, but all she really does is giggle. Then she's in the background after the final fight, but doesn't do anything, so she just doesn't have much going on there. In episode 2, we start to get some setup for her, as we see she has the solver powers, just like Uzi. She also clearly isn't stupid, since she doesn't fall for the Absolute Solver's tricks when Lizzie tries to open the door for a hologram. It also seems she has an interest in V when we see her holding the picture at the end of the episode. However, she still hasn't done much, and not a ton has been revealed to us about her character up to this point. Then in episode 3, Doll absolutely shines. This is the peak of her character in this series. We first get to see her murder a prom queen candidate for some reason that is unknown to us at the time, but it serves well to show off the Solver's powers. Then she's seen again with Lizzie when they take Uzi back to Doll's place to get ready. She's really creepy and clearly gives the audience bad vibes. Uzi goes into the bathroom to get ready, and we see Doll have a pile of broken mirrors in her bathroom that are a result of her solver. We also hear Lizzie talking about how no one will notice if Uzi's missing and how she will let in V. Doll's motives are still unknown up until this point, and remain mostly unknown until the prom scene, but we know she has problems with the solver, and we know she has a continued interest in V. Now, though, when we go ahead to the prom, we see Lizzie and Doll have set a trap for V, so Doll can get revenge on V for murdering her parents. And Uzi show up and save V. Doll and Uzi then have a face-off, and V ends up shooting Doll dead. Or at least we think so. They go to explore Doll's apartment, or whatever it is they live in, but then Doll reappears and attempts to shoot Uzi, but it activates Uzi's solver powers. Doll shows a fear of it, and that she wants to help Uzi, but she quickly leaves. There's a great use of screen time in this episode, and we learn a lot about her character and motivations. Episode 4, the whole start of the episode is set up that the group is chasing Doll to a camp. After an extended amount of boring searching, all she does is appear behind Uzi for a couple of seconds, and then she just leaves, which is really letting the audience down for what was supposed to be about them chasing her. In episode 5, she appears again for a short time, just to steal a keybug from Uzi while she was hacking NMV's memories. She goes and gives it to Tessa to set up episode 6, but doesn't do anything outside of that. When episode 6 starts, Doll takes the keybug back from Tessa and then runs from the group before falling into the labs, where she disappears until the end of the episode. She reappears to trick the group into thinking she got boot looped using a GIF. She then quickly releases the raptors on the group and jumps down the elevator shaft into the labs and uses the elevator to block the way down. Finally, in episode 7, she appears to ask Tessa where the patch is. After quickly being outmatched in a fight, Tessa disappears on her. Doll stands alone in the dark. One of my favorite characters. What is going to happen to her? How are her motivations going to carry her on through this episode? Oh shit, she got FNAF jump scared and died. God damn it. Her core then gets eaten from her body by Sinessa, and that's the end of her character. Technically, she gets screen time in episode 8, but that just doesn't count because it's just her body. Man, what a way to ruin a character. So, Doll was set up fantastically in the first 3 episodes before having a fall off almost as bad as Jay. And if Jay didn't exist, I would like to think that Doll would probably be the one everyone talked about. However, unlike Jay, I actually like Doll, so let's discuss how to fix her episode by episode. In order to do this, one crucial thing to understand are her motives, of which she has 2 main ones. Her first one is to get revenge on V. Her second one is to get a patch for her solver powers or find a way to fix herself. With this in mind, let's go. In episodes 1, 2, and 3, I actually wouldn't change a thing. Episode 1, the pilot, already has to set up so many characters that introducing Doll at this point isn't necessary, so what she does is fine. The main relevance of Doll's character, in general, has to do with the solver powers, and the solver powers aren't introduced in Uzi until episode 2, so she just doesn't have a reason to be in episode 1. Then, when the solver is introduced in episode 2, it is also revealed that she has it, giving her some initial introduction. So again, in this episode, there's no need to give her a bunch of screen time because other stuff still needs to happen to just work as exposition. We do also, of course, get to see her interest in V, which I think is all we need to see from her in this episode. And then obviously I already discussed how great she is in episode 3. We get to see her motivations, and she is excellently set up to excel in later episodes. The fall off of her character begins in episode 4, so here's where I will begin my rewrite. I am also doing this assuming there were no time restraints or budget restraints, obviously. So since the labs were supposed to have a lot to do with the Solver and Doll, the first thing we need to do is give the group an actual reason to go there. The only thing we get from the labs in the actual series is a zombie drones tape, which doesn't help the story with why they went here. So let's do this. Obviously, something else needs to be revealed either about the Solver or Doll. So let's say after a little bit of searching around, Uzi finds a little bit of evidence that the Solver might be a result of something the humans were doing in the labs. Leave it vague and mysterious, but at least it contributes to the plot. Then here's where Doll could come in. Since I already am having to make a good reason for the group to be here, this is going to be a little bit of a stretch, but it's what I'm going to go with. Let's have Doll hint at the reason that the murder drones were sent to Copper 9 was to kill the worker drones with the Solver. This could technically be a spoiler for some schools later, but to be fair, there are so many mysteries in this show that I think revealing this one wouldn't really ruin anything. However, this revelation could disturb Uzi greatly and set off her transformation instead of it being a stupid arrow getting shot at her. We would then have Uzi and Doll argue over this and have Doll try to convince Uzi to join her against the murder drones. Doll doesn't need to do a lot, but this gives her a good reason to appear in the episode and helps her develop Uzi as a consequence of her actions. I think it would help greatly. Doll could then leave and the rest of episode 4 can play out as it did with Feral Uzi. This would also have the side effect of likely making the tensions between Uzi and V even higher, which would mess up their relationship and also hurt the argument for V's sacrifice in episode 6 even more. But for the sake of this, I'm trying to fix Doll and not the V sacrifice, so I think making tensions higher would actually be good for this series in this case. After she leaves, we could do one last thing for her in this episode. Introduce the possession problem in her as well. Because she often shows a worry about the Solver and the possession, but we never see her have any issues with this. So maybe while she is exploring the camp on her own, we get to see her also have a run-in with her powers and possibly having an issue with her almost being taken over by Sin. This can shock her and prompts her to wear the eye patch, because she randomly got the redesign where she covered her Solver with the eye patch, and this can explain why she did that. And it also introduces her worry about exercising the Solver's possession. Next up is episode 5. There's already so many problems with episode 5 that this episode just doesn't need to include Doll that badly, especially since it's a flashback episode. I don't think she necessarily needs to have a ton of screen time, neither should she. This episode should be dedicated to the murder drones in the flashback, and so I don't have a problem with her just showing up to steal the key bug and advance the plot. Episode 6. The way episode 6 starts, I think is mostly fine for Doll's character. However, I do think she should address V again to keep their rivalry going so the plot point doesn't get lost. She then can take the bug back from Tessa when she realizes she's going to work with Uzi, N, and V, and she'll run away. However, we need to see more of her in this episode. I really want to dig into her want for revenge on V and her want to get rid of the possible takeover by the Solver. I think she should get a scene where she sneaks past Alice and Bo before finding the rooms beyond with the Raptors. Here, she fights the Raptors, not only to give her more cool screen time, but then she can also have moments where she's fighting with her Solver and trying to control her body. So, this expands upon her worry of possession that we see especially in episode 7, and the scene can show her fighting 2 battles at once. As she tries to fight off the Sentinels, she can also be struggling against a Solver. Ultimately, of course, she will manage to lock the Raptors behind the doors in the hallway and set the trap up that we see later on. This gives her a reason to want to be rid of the Solver, and we get to see her trying to get back at V. This utilizes both of her main goals in this series. The rest of the episode can then play out as it did. Finally, episode 7. In episode 7 in the series, Doll just dies. This is a concept that I actually do really like, and I do want to keep her death, as the end of her character feels kind of necessary, and we should, as an audience, though, really feel something upon her death, which I didn't when it happened in the series. It should really be like a wake-up call, like, wow, Liam's really just killing off characters like this. So, I have a few drastic changes I need to make. First things first, we need to make it clear that Doll actually saw the tape that showed the patch, so we know why she knows what the patch is later on. Then, again, last time I'm going to touch on this, since the two things that drive Doll are her wants for revenge and the Solver, I want to fully flush both of these aspects of her character before her death. There is no way it took V that long to fight off the Sentinels, if she survived like she did. In a drawn-out fight, she's likely going to get torn apart. So let's just say V wins, and she goes down the mine shaft after the group with Sparky. Here is where the first part of Doll's character can be wrapped up in a final battle with V. We can see them truly have a conversation about what happened, and finally end that with a full conversation about the problems between them. For the sake of it, let's say V's writing is also more improved here, and it's been drawn out and better, so we can see she is truly a changed person. She can be more trusting and careful, and her sacrifice finally made her realize she needed to change, as we can see in the 8th episode in Ballway. So here against Doll, she could also show this change and apologize to Doll for what she made her go through. Doll, of course, won't listen, as she quests for revenge. They'll fight, and V is going to win with the help of Sparky, and with the fact that Doll's going to have to continue to fight with the Solver for control of her body. As a changed woman, though, V will spare Doll, leaving her alive. V will then run off to appear in episode 8. Leaving Doll alive, though, will mean with her powers, Doll will heal. This final showdown will also show Doll that she has been defeated and wrap up this aspect of her character in a way before killing her off. Finally, she can decide to forget about her want for revenge as she finally realizes that the bigger threat here is Sin. But it's too late for her. At this point, she will go confront Tessa about the patch and possibly have a terrifying moment of realization that it isn't Tessa. Then in a slaughter, she will be murdered brutally as she never gets to truly complete either of her goals. Her revenge, as she sees she was in error all along, she will never truly obtain it, and her quest to free herself from the Solver's possession will only end up with her dead by the Solver's hand. This will be a truly meaningful and impactful death, I think, and maybe, just maybe, if this is how she had been written, she could have been my favorite character. I do genuinely think this would have made her a much better character in other people's eyes as well. Alright, so to recap, episode 1 to 3 stay the same. In episode 4, she's going to give the shocking realization to Uzi to trigger her feral aspect, as she tries to talk her into joining her, but Uzi will refuse. She will also begin to struggle with her powers. Episode 5 will stay mostly the same. Episode 6, we see her face off with V in an argument at the beginning, and struggle with her powers some more, before trying to execute her plan to kill V. Finally, in episode 7, she has a final face-off with V, a slight change of heart, and then a sudden death. This is just one of the many ways I came up with on how to fix her, but it's also one of my favorites. I have other ideas on what could have been done, but I think she needed her tragic ending, and at the same time, we just needed to flesh out the aspects of her character more, so I hope this accomplished that. I feel like I wrapped up her character in a much nicer way, although I would love to hear your feedback on my opinions here. If you've watched until now, I greatly appreciate the support. I hope you have a wonderful day. You are a wonderful person. I will see you in my next video.